The world is saved. The living room's dark, save for light being cast from the big TV screen and the imminent sunrise that's teasing the one starry sky with whispers of morning.
That sounds about right.
That sounds exactly right.
Yeah. That's and I got a note on that.
We can't just jump straight to audio.
Nope.
That would be madness.
Audio. So here's the thing about the audio on this game. I'm gonna mess with your bookmarks all over the place because now you got to bookmark audio and then intro.
The chapter marker users are not going to know what's going on. So what did we play, George?
We played Banjo-Kazooie. Oh, no, wait. That was the other one that had that horrible racial stereotype. We played Crash Bandicoot.
We played the original Crash Bandicoot for the PS1. And this matters because, we're not totally above like riding the wave of what's going on in the public mind, right? Like we want people to find the show and enjoy it. And there's a new Crash Bandicoot game coming out really close to when this episode's going to drop. Also, the original Crash Bandicoot trilogy was remade last year? Pretty recently, in the last couple of years. But we went all the way back. So this is the original Crash Bandicoot for the PS1, not the remake, not the new one, Crash Bandicoot 4, It's About Time or whatever. This is the original Crash Bandicoot, which coincidentally was released in September of 1996. So actually also right around the time we are releasing this episode. Not bad.
Yeah. So, just kind of, write to us, like hop online, like leave notes, all the normal forms to get in touch with us. If you think that for a nostalgia game, we should play Crash Bandicoot 4 because it's based off of the nostalgic game. Because if we can do that, then I got another thing that I'd like to do. But Lions won't let me do it because it's not nostalgia based. So if you want the answer to this riddle that I'm kind of nebulously putting out there, just get all of my peers, please, all of you, my peers, please use your pressure to peer pressure Lions into playing Crash Bandicoot 4 because I really need precedent to be set here.
You are not a lawyer. Like you're just like if you could go out and do a bunch of things that would destroy your character, that would help me out a lot.
It's good. And to be fair, precedent can only be set by an appellate court, so.
Yeah. Yes.
I mean, I know you knew that, but as with all of those things, this is just for the listeners.
Yeah. So my nostalgia experience for Crash Bandicoot is weirdly bifurcated because I didn't own this, but I had a lot of friends that did, right? Because this is a game a lot of people who owned a PlayStation also owned this game. But I had a demo disc that had like the first 1 or 2, maybe 3 to 4 levels on it, like a very little, slice of the game on a PlayStation demo disc that probably came attached to some crappy magazine or something. And weirdly, I have as many memories of playing that demo disc as I do playing the actual full game. And that's not a complaint, but like, that was a thing that didn't really happen for console gamers until the disc era, right? Like, I don't really remember there being demos on cartridges. Maybe there were, but I'm pretty sure there were not because they were way too expensive to produce. Companies didn't really want to get together in that way. But by the disc era, they were able to emulate some of the things we were used to on PC, and demos were a huge thing on PC. I played the crap out of Shareware Doom in its first 5 levels or whatever, right? And so,
did you notice how that went away?
Well, they just gave it a different name, and now it's called freemium or pay to play, right? It's the same basic model. Like, here's a little.
That is,
first taste is free, buddy, right? It's the same kind of idea. But yeah, I have probably as many, if not more, memories of playing like the demo of this game. And because the entire point of the demo is to lure you into buying it, those memories are all super positive because it's like the easiest, most friendly, approachable, marketable slice of the game to get you to go spend $60 on the retail game. So it's like, not only do I have nostalgia goggles for this game anyway, but like this weird hyper focused kind of nostalgia goggles that may be unique to the disc era and PC games, in at least in a way we haven't covered before on the show. So that's me and Crash.
Woo! Okay, so I don't have a nostalgia experience for Crash. I did not play this because I was on the right side of the console wars, but I have a story that leaps off of your story. So I'm going to tell that instead because I refuse to yield my time. So Doom, right? Doom, super popular game, right? I played the ever-loving mess out of that. You know the other game, though, that was completely free that I played the ever-loving mess out of? Chex Warrior. Remember that game? Did you play that game ever?
No. Like the cereal?
Yes. They made a video game, man. Yeah. No, I'll give you a minute to look that up.
Okay, you just keep talking.
No, so yeah, it was literally a Doom clone, and it's a 1-to-1, man. Like you had like the pistol, but you shot energy rays at like phlegm-based monsters, but you were the Chex man, and you had Chex armor instead of Doom armor, and you had instead of the BFG, you had like a giant like snot reducing ray, but the mechanics 1-to-1 similar. So again, like a free game that was free to play that encouraged me to go play Doom. A little bit different, but I think, like I said, I could not think of another time when I could get to discuss the Chex video game, and I thought now was the time.
So it's called Chex Quest.
Chex Quest, yeah.
And this is real.
There was a small part of you that thought I was making it up, didn't you? Like just a very small part.
Yeah, and also like once I saw the overwhelming volume of hits on Google, I was like, well, if this was like a couple of weirdos in some, horrible corner of DeviantArt or something, there wouldn't be this overwhelming amount of images and websites and like people talking about it. And it like, wow, man, like this is.
I'm surprised that this missed you.
I mean, I have seen other weird food-based obvious marketing ploys masquerading as video games. I just do not remember this one.
Yeah, man. Dude, I played this game a lot because it mechanically behaved exactly like Doom, but I
mean, even the HUD is not only identical, but where Doom Guy's face would be. This is just what we're doing the episode about now. We
played Chex Warrior, Chex Quest,
where Doom Guy's face would be is a Chex piece, which if you're not familiar with that cereal, basically looks like a tiny waffle, but it has the little eyes looking side to side like Doom Guy's eyes. Like this is that's the thing, is because his armor, right, like has the shoulder pads like Saiyan armor or like Doom Guy's armor, but the thing is, so they're big shoulder pads and they close over his head, so he just has the eyes, But when he's Chex Doom Guy, like he's got it open so he can like interact with other Chexians. Never have I been more sure that we're going to have to start intentionally playing games for April Fool's Day. Not even saying we will eventually get to this game, but just the fact that this exists means we are missing out on an opportunity here. Yep. So anyways, that's my nostalgia experience for Crash Bandicoot. But I think the thing that I really like the most about Chex Quest is the amount of people who have like come together to like write about it on the internet, which is very similar to our community. So when people come and they write amazing reviews on the Apple Podcasts, on the Apple Store, when they watch you play Twitch,
like when they come on Patreon and they give us money that way, like all of that is just fantastic, much like Chex Quest.
So I don't want to overload people with requests, because like that's not fair, right? The audience doesn't know us things. So when people reach out to us on Twitter, when they leave reviews on Apple Podcasts, when they walk outside of their house and yell, and yell, when they are doing those things, do you want them to yell about Crash Bandicoot 4 or about Chex Quest? Because I don't think it's reasonable to ask for both. I don't think it's reasonable to ask for both. And personally, I want to hear from these Chex Quest fans.
It's true. No, Crash Bandicoot 4. I really need this.
I need the legal precedent.
I need this completely non-binding precedent.
All right. Gosh, I don't know what to do now. I guess we should probably talk about the visuals for Crash Bandicoot.
We don't want to talk about the audio? Okay, visuals. I guess we should. So, yeah. So, okay, this is a visual in that it is one of the first visuals that hits you. But this fact hit me like a train, which is this is made by Naughty Dog.
Yeah.
Whoa. I would not have guessed, man. Like, as far as I'm concerned, like, Naughty Dog was the equivalent of a man who was just sitting in a room by himself eating saltines until he turned 21 and then came to a party. Like, they did nothing until they did The Last of Us. And then, I mean, well, I guess, what's the other one? The Nathan Drake? Uncharted, yeah. They did Uncharted, but that was it. Like, they just came together to do Uncharted. So when I saw that they did this game, I was like, really? Interesting. So that definitely colored like the way I approached the game. Because I just waiting for something
terrible to go wrong.
Well, no, but actually, no. I can piggyback this, which is that they, even in this kind of throwaway platformer, there's a lot of rich kind of storytelling that they're doing. So like you can kind of see that they've always wanted to tell stories. This is just a zany, cartoony story, but I mean, all of the character models, all of the world that they're in, even the fact that there's this incredibly poorly rendered cutscene at the very beginning, basically kind of giving you the bananas plot, but all of it comes together really well in a way that Naughty Dog is known very well for doing, which is harmonizing gameplay and storytelling. They're even doing it here when the story is like bananas, but they're still doing it. They're still Naughty Dog. And I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah, it is very like evolutionary, right? Where this, like, I literally have a note for the visuals that says cartoons save low poly again, because a lot of early PS1 graphics and early N64 and early Xbox, like a lot of early low poly graphics, like they look bad, right? And they weren't that great then, and they certainly don't hold up. I actually really felt like these graphics don't only hold up, but this is one of the few examples where I think low poly almost goes unnoticed, because like the thing you interact with to get items are crates. And what are crates? They are perfect cubes. And what's pretty easy to render with triangles? Perfect cubes, right? Crash Bandicoot is like really pointy and weird looking, but it's because he's a Looney Tunes character. So he's basically a skinny Tasmanian devil. Like you totally instantly make your peace with anytime you see like a weird angle or a weird corner, because you're like, yeah, it's just what that thing looks like, right? And it's fine. It's basically always fine. And I suspect that Naughty Dog, even though this was either their first game or one of their very first games, but I suspect that they kind of saw forward and they were like, okay, these are the limitations we're working within. Let's make some decisions that aren't going to immediately date this, right? And they didn't do that decision correctly everywhere, right? Like he's very 90s, baggy pants, sneakers, like he's very Sonic the Hedgehog, right? But it's that kind of thing happens. But a lot of the architectural decisions they made in like how it looks is like you're in this made up place, right? So it doesn't date it. You're not in the USSR, right? Everything looks like a jungle and like the temples, and it's all like ancient, kind of ruins and things, which are like sort of evergreen. Ancient ruins don't stop being ancient ruins one day. So like all of that stuff is as valid today as it was in 1996.
Agreed. I would say the one place where the low poly really kind of falls down, because you can kind of tell that all of the character models are designed as such to be okay with low poly, right? You know, like you said, Crash Bandicoot is basically a giant golfing tee, you know? I mean, like,
yes.
You know, so I mean, it's basically like, what is that? It's a big series of triangles kind of at the top, and then just a bunch of long triangles that come down, right? That character model works. The main bad guy, whatever his name is, he's got this like enormous oblongy head, right? Because what's really difficult to do? Spheres. What's really easy to do? Giant cylinders, basically, you know? The person that Crash is trying to rescue looks awful, in my own personal humble opinion.
Because she's the princess, right? The damsel, and the damsel needs to be curvy, and they could not do curvy. You're right.
No, they could not.
She looks terrible. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, and so that's the thing is, and she looks to me out of place because she is very humanoid. You know, like you said, she's supposed to look like a furry, basically. You know, like she looks like. I mean, she is a humanoid woman with a Bandicoot face.
She's Candy Kong.
She's what?
Candy Kong. The girl Kong from Donkey Kong Country.
I heard Candy Column, and I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. But yeah, she's Candy Kong. I mean, like they do this kind of thing a lot. Like, I mean, she's some of the Sonic characters before it got weird, or before it got really weird. I mean, like a lot of games do this type of thing, but I feel that it's very out of place. Kind of. I mean, first of all, saving the damsel dates the game. But if we threw out every game where it was, you know, save the damsel in distress, like, I mean, we wouldn't have a podcast. It'd be like, hey, they're all bad. That's not the point. But the idea though is that, you know, like I said, is that for whatever reason they said, you know, like, hey, not only does she have to be a damsel in distress, but she has to be a voluptuous woman. And it's like, no. If you had just made her like what I think would have been more in keeping with the theming of this game is if she was literally like Crash Bandicoot with like a Goldilocks wig, you know, like just one. I mean, it would have been cheaper for them, right? And it would have been funny because it would have been like, oh yeah, Crash has got to go save his hot girlfriend, or, you know, like whatever. She looks just like Crash because they're bandicoots. Like, I can't tell a male from a female Bandicoot, you know. So I mean, like that to me would have been more on point. So. But outside of that, I think that they did a good job designing the game around the physical limitations of what they could build, you know?
We do need to, I think, at least give the thumbs up to coloring, because this isn't something, when we've talked about other cartoony games, that I think we've always really gone super deep on. And we don't have to elaborate, but I think it's worth mentioning there are no pastels. Right? Like every color is 100% saturation, but that really goes with the character designs and with the way like everything moves. Like everything moves in like a big squash and stretch, like super Looney Tunes, Saturday morning cartoon kind of way, right? And to me, the best example of that, death animations. Like Crash has 20 different death animations. He can get flattened, he can explode, he can get KO'd, you can get frozen to death, you can get electrocuted to death, you can burn up where you like turn into like a little ash pile, right? Like you can get knocked into the camera or away from the camera. There's literally probably a dozen unique death animations, and they're all bright and like just close your eyes, picture Wile E. Coyote getting his ass handed to him by the Roadrunner. And it's like that. It's just these really expressive, and not just like, oh man, he died, so cool, but like emotional. Like in a lot of them, he like looks at the camera, or, you know, he makes a certain face or something, like as he's, you know, exploding or being electrocuted or whatever. So these really like emotionally expressive maybe this is where we should have seen the evidence of like, oh, they're eventually going to go into drama, right? This is comedy, but it's like they like playing with story and emotion, and they wanted to go big on that, right? And going big on drama is something very different than going big on Saturday morning cartoons, but they are ways for the storytellers to express like big emotions. And here there's just lots of bright colors and lots of zaniness, right? But it's like, it's fun. Like, I think this is the Looney Tunes more than some of the other games we've played that I think had that cartoony kind of feel, like an Earthworm Jim, which is like more like Ren and Stimpy, right?
Mhm.
Like playing Crash Bandicoot is like playing a Wile E. Coyote cartoon. Playing Earthworm Jim is more like playing Ren and Stimpy, right? And it's not one's better or worse than the others, but like if you want, you know, colorful, silly cartoons, like that's where you'd lean more Bandicoot.
Gotta lean Bandicoot. I think too, one of the things that they did that I really liked, speaking of like the coloring, where you talk about like the saturation, is they did a good job with like the lighting effects. Because so here's, and from my seat, is that I was at first a little disappointed because I didn't feel like they had as much of a variety of worlds, you know? Like when I first jumped into this thing, is I was expecting like Mario 64, where like, yeah, there's an ice world and a sand world and an underwater world and a metal world. And I mean, like so many worlds, right? And I didn't really get that from this game. You know, I was like, oh, it's all in the jungle. Oh. And at first I was pretty bummed about that. But then I was like, okay, but they got to like, there's space limitations, you know, there's only so much that they can do reasonably on the disc. And there's also only so much that they can reasonably create as far as like a visual, you know, as far as visuals, like there's money, right? You gotta people pay people to do this stuff. And I doubt that Naughty Dog had the deep pockets that Nintendo had, right? So all of that being said is that they cut corners, or they were resourceful in their resource use, right, in a number of different places. One of them being they reuse a bunch of resources, but they make them feel different by coloring by literally just changing the hue of the entire stage, right? So, you know, you've got like overworld jungle look, right? And that looks a certain way, right? And it's kind of like a yellow kind of color. But you want to put them underground? They're using all of the same assets for the underground level. They're just blue now, and they put a couple of mushrooms in there. You know, it's exactly the same, but now you're underground. They did one where it looks like sunset, you know, or where there's a lava. Like those are various colors of red tinted. So literally by just changing the hue of the level, they they make it so that way it feels like an entirely different level. And I thought that was kind of clever.
Well, Nate, you're totally right. It creates that passage of time, and it creates that like, oh, I'm in a slightly different place now, so it looks a little bit different, even though really it's recolored, you know, assets from before. And they do. There's the jungly kind of areas. There's the temple-y, like indoor areas, which are basically all black, so they don't really look like anything. And then there's the like factory kind of mechanical, like when you're at the end and you're in Neocortex, by the way, is his name. When you're in Neocortex's like lab, then everything is all metal and electricity and bubbling green, you know, vats of science.
He's got to have given himself that name, right? No parent in their right mind names their child Neocortex and doesn't expect them to become a super scientist, right?
I mean, maybe that's what they were after.
Yeah, I mean, maybe, you know, like they were hoping that he'd be the next Rusty Venture, but you know, instead he became Dr. Neocortex. You know,
I mean, you know, when you bet big like that, like sometimes you lose big. So it's, you know, but yeah, I mean, there's throughout the entire game, because I did manage to finish the game, and
did you get the true ending?
No.
Get all the gems?
No. In fact, someone on stream was just haranguing me endlessly. Like, you didn't. How did you get to the end without getting a single gem? And I was like, "'Cause it's hard."
It's like, no, I mean, it's impressive. Because I mean, you were going for a 100%. and you did a 100% no gem run.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And I would, frankly, I would like a little respect. Thank you.
Exactly. It takes work to do nothing.
That's right. But yeah, I mean, so you go through the jungle and then like into the temple and then like more jungle and like more temple, like more jungle. And then it starts to get mechanical once you're into the lab, and then it stays mechanical like through the end. Which is fine, but you're right when you liken it more to Super Mario Brothers than like Super Mario World, right? There's a lot more recoloring and reshuffling of assets than there is like, here's a whole new thing with totally different physics. And there is variety. There absolutely is. But by the time you're done with the game, you can kind of look back down the path you walked and be like, oh, okay, there was like 4 different things. And like, it's fine. They all look nice and I enjoyed them all, but they're like, there was like 4. It wasn't like 12.
Yeah. Right. And I'm used to seeing 12, but you know, 4's good. I think, so this is something that, and I don't have this idea fully baked. So here we go. It's almost a 2-dimensional in the way the visuals play, right? Which is to say that you're basically, first of all, it's a straight up obstacle course. I mean, like this is not Mario where they give you a giant open world to platform and play in, right? This is like you're running down this path, or literally sometimes they just go straight back to 2-dimensional side scrolling, you know? So I thought that was an interesting choice. And then when I was thinking about it, I was like, well, again, and I think this was probably as they're making the transition to the 3-dimensional era, you know, like what can we get away with and what can't we? Most of the challenges really only require you to move around on 1 or 2 axes at a time, like you would in a 2-dimensional platformer, as opposed to all 3 axes at the same time. You know,
that is almost always true. And when it's not true, there's a really good chance you're going to die, but because it kind of catches you off guard. But that is an interesting way to think about it, that when they're doing this, what I called Z-axis platforming, where you're going directly away from the camera or directly into the camera, the corridor you're in is so narrow that the odds of you screwing up on that axis are not 0, right? It's far from impossible, but it's nowhere near the huge, you know, panoramic area of screw ups there it was in like a Mario 64, where it's like you can go this way, that way, every other way.
Right. And so it's that you, not only do you not have that great area to go with, right? So like, let's say you've got the Z-axis is moving like away from you. So you move obviously up and down that, and you can move up and down on the Y-axis, right? But the X-axis, the game does not necessitate that you move along that almost at all. Like you can get along with just...
Yeah, it's very little. There's like the one level with the boar where you have to like dodge stuff left and right, but then you're not controlling the Y-axis in that one, actually.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're only controlling 2 axes at a time. Yeah. So that's and because I was going to bring that up, right? That's the thing. And that's one of the differences in kind they do, right? Because they say like, okay, we're going to take away your ability to control the Z-axis, right? But we're going to give you more stuff to do on the Y-axis. So again, I thought that in a very clever way, by limiting the visuals, gain direct control over the fact that unless you've got a decent games literacy and are literally looking for stuff like this, you're unlikely to notice the fact that they're doing literally a third of the lifting for you.
Yeah. And this is really blowing my mind, because I'm now thinking of a few spots in the game that I thought were really awkwardly, unfairly designed. And it's because most of the game, they were only asking me to do 2 things. And then for this one moment in a level, or for this one, set of obstacles, they were suddenly asking me to do 3 things. And so like in one of the last levels, when you're like almost up into Cortex's lab, it's a side scroller style level, right? So there is technically a Z-axis, but you don't really do anything with it right up until you do. And so there's a spot with like these platforms that are going up and down, and you're standing on the platform, and you have to jump from the platform you're standing on into the camera, like into the screen to land on another platform, which then goes up and down. And then you have to jump, that one goes down and then you have to jump back away from the camera. So it's just for a second. But the thing is, the way the platforms are designed is you can overshoot it. So this whole level, you've only been having to deal with the X and Y. And then for this, literally like these 2 or 3 platforms, 90% of the way through the level, they're like, okay, but also Z. And it's like, no, not also Z. If you're going to also Z, you have to get rid of X or Y. Like not also Z. And those moments felt so cheap when I died. And I didn't, like, I was aware, like, oh, they're making me do this thing in and out of the camera, and it's really annoying because I don't have like the right perspective on it. But it didn't occur to me that it's like, oh, they're also asking me to do 3 things when they'd only been asking me to do 2 things. And when I was thinking about my notes for the camera, I was like, oh man, there's no way to talk about Z-axis platforming in the visuals without talking about how it affects the game mechanically. But to me, this belongs in both because this game has such a bizarre look, knowing what we know now that Z-axis platforming did not have any future, right? Like,
right.
No other games besides Crash Bandicoot series and maybe some Crash Bandicoot ripoffs were like, yeah, going in and out of the camera directly. Everyone will love that.
Right. Yeah. And so they still do the kind of the smart things with the visuals to, help with the platforming, like the shadow, helping you time jumps, things like that. They don't, again, also too, it's third person, not first person platforming, which has died its 1,000 deaths, like any game that was like, no, it's gonna be first person and it's gonna be platforming. You're like, if a game is doing that, they've got to be solely doing that. It's like when a sushi restaurant also sells hoagies. I'm like, I only want you doing sushi, please.
Yeah, one of those. Please pick one of those.
Yeah, please pick. They have a place that's like hoagies and wings and like 3 or 4 other things. I'm like, yeah, it's fine. Like hoagies are pretty straightforward. But if sushi's on there, I'm like, please focus on sushi. So if somebody's like, I'm going to do first person platforming, it's like, what do you mean? It's like, no, I'm going to do this portal mechanic that like it's going to be wild. It's going to blow your mind. I'm like, okay. But it's all based around this one thing, or it's like that's gonna be based around parkour, and I'm gonna like really focus on it. It's like, okay, I can do that because that's the one thing you're doing. But it's like, no, we're gonna have RPG mechanics, and we're gonna have like these like cool multiplayer mechanics. Oh my god, multiplayer would be like the buffalo chicken wings, like of sushi restaurants, right? Because if you got a sushi restaurant that also does buffalo chicken wings, like red flag, So, and that relates back to Crash Bandicoot somehow, I'm sure.
In some way. No, I think because I as I was playing the game and as I was writing out my notes, I was just like, I'm so like my modern games literacy makes me immediately balk at the Z-axis platforming. But if you actually look at it in execution, like you think about the visuals, right? All of the jumps are basically perfectly spaced. It's not never, but it's very seldom that they ask you to short a jump, right? Most of the jumps you have to make, especially early in the game, are jump as far as you can jump. So you just have to time it right, but you don't have to also judge the distance, which would be hard to do when you're looking down a tunnel or when he's coming toward the camera, because that also happens in the first half of the game pretty frequently. So it's this kind of weird situation where they clearly knew that this was not a well-trodden path, and so they left like a lot of signs and Karens and warnings and breadcrumbs to all those who would come after, because they were like, we know you can get from here to there by following this trail, but this is our first time up the mountain and this might be the dumbest possible trail, but just this will get you there, but we're not saying that we know for sure this is a good idea. And it's because you can see all of these little moments where it's like, oh, okay, I don't have to judge this distance because visually that would be impossible, right? I don't have to know exactly how far these two objects apart are, because it's always a full jump, right? And so I don't have to memorize like, oh, what does his jump arc look like? And what does the space on my screen look like when it's a full jump or a half jump? It's you don't really generally, not never, but you don't generally have to internalize those things, which to me shows they knew that this Z-axis platforming, this camera angle on all of their pointy cartoon visuals was like, this might not work out. Like, we're gonna go for it, but
Well, and I think though that one is, and I can't prove this, but I am very confident that there is a lot of under the hood coyote physics going on with whether or not you make a jump, because especially in like that first level where the boulder is rolling towards you, so you're like running and jumping towards the camera. I'm like, I am getting 90% assist on this. Like, I'm just jumping, and as long as I jump at the right time, I'm going to land on the thing that I need to land on. So now it's not a matter of timing the jump arc not timing it. The timing is the only thing you're worried about, right? It's not like, well, how far am I jumping or anything like that, like you would in a Mario game. So you know what this is? This is way closer to those running app games,
Oh yeah,
like,
there are stages that are totally infinite runner style.
Yeah, it's just an infinite runner like that. This is the progenitor to that, where basically all you're trying to do is just control, like we said, like two axes, right? Like, so you're just kind of going forwards and backwards, right? And then up and down. And so it's literally like run, press A, right? Press A. Like, as long as you press A at the right time, it'll generally work, And again, like, that's when they're doing this kind of stuff with the camera, that's all you can do with it. If you're trying to do more where it's like, no, we need you to be hyper specific and careful on your jump arcs, then the game would fall apart immediately and completely.
Yeah. And visually, something I didn't realize until we started picking this apart, which is awesome. Some of their level designers or playtesters or someone must have realized controlling the y-axis when you are controlling the z-axis, don't. So like if you imagine any of the levels where you're going into or out of the camera, you don't control the y-axis, you jump, so you have to interact with the y-axis, but you never ascend or descend. And then the levels that are traditional side scrollers where you're controlling the x-axis, those are the levels where you ascend and descend, because trying to ascend and descend while you're also zooming in and out would be awful. It would be really, really awful. And so not only do they limit the scope of like, oh, okay, well, when we're going to make you control the z-axis and you're going into or out of the camera, we're also going to essentially remove or really limit the x-axis. They also knew that this was so weird that they were going to dramatically reduce the y-axis. So you never have to jump up onto something, right? You never have to like climb up a flight of stairs or anything like that. It's like, make this jump, make that jump, make the next jump. Otherwise you'll fall and you'll have to come back toward the camera and then start the stair climb over again. You never do that. You jump over obstacles and then you're back on level ground. And then you jump over obstacles and then you're back on level ground. And the only time you permanently ascend or permanently descend is in the side scroller levels, with the exception that in some of the temple levels, or in all of the temple levels, you step on like a little pillar that appears to go up or down, but I mean, it's an elevator. So like you, the player, aren't doing anything, but yes, if you want to be technical, those levels have some verticality to them. It just happens to you.
And you know why? Because what's the thing that Naughty Dog's all about? Game feel, right? So the game feels good, right? So the visuals tie that together, right? So they knew that doing the visuals this way, there were going to be things that they can't do in the game, but they didn't want to make the game frustrating or insanely difficult or anything like that. They wanted the game to feel good. They wanted to feel like a cartoon, like a zany, fun cartoon, right? Because that's what Naughty Dog focuses on, is how does the game feel? And that's why this is the progenitor to The Last of Us.
This will be my last kind of off the weirdness, because this has been a weird visuals section. I'm not sad. I think it was all interesting, but it's just we had some tangents in there. In Uncharted 4, in the very beginning of the game, you're in your house, apartment, whatever, with your partner, and you can sit down at an original PlayStation and play Crash Bandicoot. So you can literally control Nathan Drake playing Crash Bandicoot on a PlayStation in his home. And I don't know if the entire game is in there, but to put in perspective, like the entirety of Crash Bandicoot is probably the same amount of data as like his hair or his 5 o'clock shadows. Like they could have easily put the entire game in there. I just don't know if they did.
Yeah, no, I always love that kind of game within a game, like in Celeste, how you can play Celeste in Celeste, stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, you could probably take the entirety of all NES, SNES, and Genesis games and like throw them into a very, very small corner of your current PlayStation 4.
Oh yeah, no, the entirety of every Nintendo, if you just took 8-bit games, the entirety of all of them would probably fit in what you would consider a high quality photograph taken on your phone. and I'm like, I don't think that's an exaggeration, because like modern cameras take ridiculously high quality photographs that are like multiple megabytes, and those old games were measured in kilobytes. So like, just unbelievable. But anyway.
Well, and it's like when somebody, there's actually a really great College Humor sketch where they talk about like going back to the 90s, and it's actually a really funny sketch, and there's a lot of great stuff in there, but they're like zapping everything to the way it looked in the 90s, and they showed a modem that was like 500 BPS, and I was showing somebody a thing, and they were like, what's that? And I'm like, oh, that's bits per second or bytes per second, right? It's like, yeah, it's at 500 BPS, right? That was screaming fast, man. You could get text like nobody's business.
And it is bits, right? Because 1 bit is 1 bit. 1 byte is 8 bits.
Right.
So this is something like when people are like, oh, well, I have a megabyte, down, like that's what I get from Comcast. And it's like, no, you have 10 megabits down, which is an eighth what you think it is. Oh, and just for reference, to put a bookend on this tangent, the original Super Mario Brothers was 31 kilobytes.
Woo! Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Audio. Yeah. I love the music in this game, man. Music's great. It just again, if we're talking about game feel, it feels right, and it feels awesome. And yeah, I can't pick it apart like you probably can, but I mean, I was literally humming this song most of the time I was playing it, because it's fun, it's poppy, it's catchy.
They do everything in their power to also make it sound like a Saturday morning cartoon, right? It's more atmospheric than hummable most of the time. Like you wouldn't probably just walk around whistling these jaunty tunes the way you might whistle, like Mario music or Final Fantasy or Mega Man music and stuff. And I don't think that that's bad. I like that they erred a little bit on the side of atmosphere, because a lot of games are afraid to do that. They want to write, the next Super Mario Brothers theme. And so everything has a melody, and these songs have melodies, but they're also kind of like to put you in the mood, right? You were talking about the coloring of the levels, and the music also has a kind of color to it, right? There's the levels where it's the middle of the day are like the kind of most awake, and then the levels at sunset are like a little bit more subdued, and then the levels that are like in the temple are like way more quieter, and it's more like water dripping, things echoing kind of noises, and they all have melodies. They are all songs. It's not just noise, but they're not toe tappers, but they're in situ. They're incredibly enjoyable, really fun, like lighthearted, atmospheric kind of music, just like you would expect. Like all of the Looney Tunes cartoons were all highly orchestrated, right? All of the old Disney cartoons, like the actual television cartoons, not the movies, highly orchestrated, right? They like the term for matching the visuals on the screen to the music is literally called Mickey Mousing. Like that's how much they did that thing in that era, because like that was before talkies, right? So like they matched up the action exactly to the music so that you knew the emotion that was going with the action you were seeing, since they couldn't, speak words. And this is, to me, more on that side, right? Like, I know what to feel and I feel it at the right time, but I couldn't sing any of these songs to you right now, even though I spent many, many hours listening to this music.
So two things on the music is one, you mentioned Looney Tunes, and I'm really proud of myself for this, which is literally, while it's still giving you the disclaimer, right, is I know that they're trying to emulate Saturday morning cartoons and Looney Tunes, because that sound that they make at the beginning is the exact same sound, that like right before that end part, but that lead in kind of string thing, it's used right at the beginning. So I mean, like, that has that cartoony feel to it, which is amazing. So I was just proud of myself because I never have that specific of a note. That
sound, I think the technical term for that would be a glissade, but it's like a whole orchestra glissade where like all of the instruments are going, slide. It's French for slide. It's like, right. And that has, like, your brain, if you grew up watching any of those kind of cartoons or anything, like, your brain just goes, this is a fun cartoon. Like, you don't need any other information. In fact, if the entirety of The Last of Us followed that sound, you would constantly be waiting for it to turn into a fun cartoon, because you're like, your brain just knows that anything that comes after that noise is fun cartoon. And so I think it's a testament to how that noise is used in no other situations, that even to you, that was glaringly obvious.
Yes. Yeah. No, when I heard that musical Lestat, I was definitely like right on top of it. But then also too, like, I would say that the main, at least the title theme, and it comes up a few other times, song is definitely hummable. The do 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 do. Oh man, it's good. It's good. Good music. Okay, so that was nice. That was fun. we got to talk about the witch doctory. Like, I don't know how to discuss this appropriately culturally, in the sense that, like, I do not know enough about the culture that this comes from, the region it comes from, to discuss this in a way that, like, in a truly educated fashion. What I can say is that this doesn't feel culturally appropriate. Like, anytime when you have witch doctory stuff, it feels like we're kind of making fun of indigenous people. Literally, the fact that in Banjo-Kazooie, the fact that it was like, like whatever, and it's got that exact same kind of noise here. I'm like, that right there, that did not age well. And the fact that he's like your second in command, like, he's your power up that stops you from getting hurt. You hear it a lot.
Yeah, it's your mushroom.
Yeah, exactly. It's your +1 hit point.
Yeah. I think you can power him up 3 times, so you can collect the mask multiple times in the same level, and it's not like another mushroom where you just get score points. Like, it actually gives you another hit point up to a certain amount. And then I think after you collect the last one, you get a brief window of invincibility. So that's how they give you the superstar mechanic, right? Like, not everything is a ripoff of Mario, but it's hard not to relate it back to that stuff, right? So, you hear the hooga booga booga, like, you hear that a lot.
Yeah.
I do not in any way disagree with you that this is clearly a bizarre cultural stereotype that somehow hung on way into our lifetimes, right? It's not like this is from the 1920s when there were still minstrel shows and stuff. Like, we were alive. Everyone listening to this right now was probably alive when this was considered a totally normal and fine thing to do.
At the same point in time, like, when you do something culturally insensitive, it ingrains it.
People are like, oh, well, come on, it's fun. Like, it's just like, it's not hurting anybody.
Yeah. But it is.
But it is. But it's bad.
The sound effect that goes with it is very similar to, like, we call barbarians because, when they talk, it just sounds like bar, bar, bar. Like, that's, the etymology of the name. Like, so it's like, oh yeah, that's what these people sound like, and it's like, no. And again, this is one of those things where anybody who creates art is going to let their own biases come in. And that can just be ignorance, like, so in the same way that, like, if somebody came to me and said, like, hey, listen, you said thing A and that was top to bottom wrong. I'm like, oh, dude, I'm sorry. Explain it to me. And I don't know if this persisted in later Crash Bandicoot games, but yeah, it was just something where I was like, ooh, come on, guys. So what? Like we get it, but what is the mask? Its own thing, and the sound effect is part of it.
Yeah. So again, like, just because it's not the worst thing doesn't mean it isn't bad.
I didn't mean to make all sound about that one sound effect. The one other thing I've got for audio is I really do like the apple sound effect. It is a very satisfying sound effect.
Oh, the like biting, slurping.
Yeah,
it's good. It's they're wumpus fruit, wampum fruit. I think it's wumpus fruit. They're
apples.
They're mangoes.
Apples. Hey, can I just get some coffee? Beer. Coffee. Beer. C-O-B-A. Apples. Yeah, but no, that sound is just, I don't know. It is so good because it has that right kind of like, it sounds like biting into a brand new apple. It makes me want an apple. Like literally as I was playing this game, I was like, I want an apple because the sound effect is so good. So, there are good sound effects that I like the apple sound effect.
So, do you have anything else for audio?
No.
Okay, because I have a sound effects note that leads pretty cleanly into mechanics. So, when you smash open a crate and there's a bunch of wumpus fruits, mangoes, apples laying there, spinning and floating, like looking all seductive and delicious. You can grab them by just like smashing your face into them, and you get the crunchy slurpy noise, which is super satisfying. Or if you ABS, always be spinning, you can knock them away, and then it makes a like very Looney Tunes, like just knocked it into the stratosphere, kind of, like when you miss like in old westerns when they miss a shot and it makes all like pew pew, like it's
back when they used to shoot actual bullets at people.
Yeah, back then. So it's a super clear, crystal clear way to let the player know you didn't pick that one up, you didn't get that one, you spun into it and you knocked it away like an idiot. And you can knock away the mask, you can knock away one-ups, you can knock anything that you can pick up, you can also spin into it and knock it away. And it makes that like sound effect every single time. And so I learned to hate that sound because it meant I had screwed something up. But then I learned to love that sound because it was the thing that made me stop spinning. Like because the visual, it goes flying so fast. And so you could maybe not notice, especially if you're doing tricky platforming, like not necessarily notice, like, oh, I have not been picking up any of these mangoes, and I haven't been picking up one-ups, and I haven't been picking up anything because every time I open a crate, I keep spinning, and I've been knocking it into oblivion at like 1,000 miles an hour. So the fact that little sound effect was there to remind me, like, hey, you screwed up again. Yeah. Hey, you're still screwing up. Stop screwing up. Is this not clear enough? I feel like it's pretty clear. You should probably stop. You're going to die. Like that.
Behold the field where you screwed up.
that sound effect was definitely the linchpin that taught me to play the game differently. Like I honestly believe I would not have been able to internalize playing the game differently, like not spinning into collectibles without that audio feedback, because it's punishment, right? It's not audio feedback that allows you to make the right decision. It's audio feedback that tells you you have just recently made the wrong decision.
Right. Things just got real. I thought things were already real. No, things have become real just recently. Yeah, so gameplay. Here's the thing. You can do two things in this game. Spin and jump. And that's good. Because, again, this is the era where they didn't really, we stand upon the shoulders of giants. They didn't have Z targeting. Z targeting didn't exist yet, right? And I know that because Z targeting was a thing that Legend of Zelda did. And the reason why I know the Legend of Zelda did is because it had a Z button, it had a Z trigger, and it's Z targeting, these are things that did not exist yet, right? So all of these games are like very, very carefully crawling upon the land, you know? So saying like, no, here's the thing, guys. How many axes are we going to have them deal with? 2. Well, sometimes 3. No, mostly 2, though. Okay. How many things can we have them do? Oh, well, okay. Well, we've got your spin. We got your jump. We got your dash. We got your power dash. We've got your over the shoulder triple jump. We've got your none of that. You can do 2 things. Pick them. And I feel like that's what the guy did was he said 2 things. I want a sheet at the end of the day with 2 things listed on it. I'm going to leave. And when I come back, if there's more than 2 things on the sheet, you're fired. And I'm going to talk to the next guy and he's going to put 2 things on the sheet.
The number of things over 2 is the number of you that will be fired.
I feel like it was like the in Firefly when they accidentally they screw something up. So there's a hitman after them. He goes like, this is all the money he gave us. It's like, we will hunt you down until the end of the world. That's unfortunate. Kicks him into the jet turbine, brings the next thing up. Now, this is all the money you give us. Yeah, no, dude, I'm entirely on board with that. That's the thing. You're going to do 2 things in this game. No, we want to do a million things. You're fired. All right, come here. You're going to do 2 things in this game. Yeah, no, 2 things. Jump and spin. But I feel like that simplicity was absolutely necessary, and it's absolutely part of the cartoonishness of the game, you know? So, yeah, good on them for not making me do a whole bunch of weird stuff because I would not have handled that well.
Well, and again, this like it really shows that this is the most self-aware fish on land of all the fish on land that I think we've ever been exposed to, because the more I played and the more we've been picking this apart over the course of the episode is I'm realizing that you can technically control your jump arc, but it's so little as to almost be useless. Like you have to realize you jumped at the wrong time or in the wrong direction basically immediately, right? It's not Castlevania where you buy an engagement ring for that jump arc, but it's close, right? It's more on the you're committed to the jump arc than it is on the you have perfect aerial control. The spin, there's no way that I'm aware of to abandon the spin. And when you're spinning, you cannot jump. So if you are on the ground and you are spinning all the time, you will careen to your death off ledges, which I did a lot until I learned to stop spinning all the time. You'll be firing 1-ups and mangoes off into the distance all the time, which I learned to stop doing. Like, don't always be spinning. Spinning is a tool. Please deploy it effectively. Don't always be spinning. Always be running. Always be jumping. Do not always be spinning. And they punish you by killing you, by making you waste pickups to teach you that spinning is not a magical solve everything tool. So not only do you have, limited axes you're dealing with and a very, very limited power set, but they then even reinforce use these at the right time. Don't just press buttons for no reason. And there's no fireballs. There's no ranged weapons. There's none of that. There's nothing. You can get extra hit points by picking up the culturally insensitive mask. And that's it. There's no other power-ups of any kind.
Yep, absolutely. One of the other things, and also too, to that point, is it makes it really easy to figure out what you need to do in puzzles. Because the first time I got to one of those spinning platforms where you have to spin at it to spin the platform, I jumped over to it and I didn't make the jump. And I'm like, well, that's half of what I can do. Let me try spinning at it. And then that worked, but I didn't spin like with Ocarina of Time where I'm like, okay, all right, I'm in this room. Which of my 50,000 things that I have in my inventory can I use to do this? Don't get me wrong. I like Legend of Zelda, or at least I remember it fondly. Anyways, but so we got, but yeah, so that's good. There's only 2 ways, right? Okay. You burn through lives super fast in this game. So fast. And I feel that that's actually good in the sense that it is very on point with this type of game, right? I mean, how often does Wile E. Coyote die? How often does Daffy Duck get his face blown off, literally? So I was on board with that. I was like, yeah, let me just die. I'm going to die a whole bunch. The save mechanic and the cycle time is bananas weird, right? Because the only way you're allowed to save is to get to a bonus level. And I have never, ever seen anything in a game like that before, or since.
Saving in this game is the most polar experience of saving in a game, because first off, this game has memory card saves, which is what I used and what I assume you used. But then it also has a password system. And the reason they did that is because they knew that a lot of people were getting their first console that required a memory card, and that their mom and dad might not buy a memory card for them because they might not know that they need that, right? So, like, I knew kids who owned PlayStations and did not own memory cards because their parents just didn't understand that that was a thing they needed to play the game, because the Super Nintendo didn't need that. It's like Genesis didn't need that. What do you mean you need another thing to plug into it? And I'm not like, it was new. They didn't understand, right? If you're not a technical person, it would be easy to just be like, it's a rectangle, you plug into this other rectangle. What are you talking about? So they included a password mechanic. So every time you could save to the memory card, it also shows you what the password is. So you don't have to pick and choose. It gives you both, always gives you both. And then that way you can play the game as if you were saving, but using the passwords. And yet, these super thoughtful people who had the sense of mind to bake that into the way they built the game, which also meant there was other things that they may have wanted to do that they couldn't do because they had to make sure that you could save via password, which limits the kind of complexity you can have in your game. Metal Gear Solid cannot have a password-based saving system. There's just way too many variables, right?
I mean, I think they probably could, but it'd be like a 72-digit alphanumeric code,
Well, and knowing Hideo Kojima, he'd be like, "Oh, it's my DNA sequence." And so you have to find me in the world and then draw some of my blood.
Yeah, no, it would be it would probably be something where it's like they say, "Okay, we got this password system. It's 72 characters, it's alphanumeric, but we finally did it." And he's like, "Okay, but the sum of the square roots of each character represented as a number must be equal to pi." And it's like, what? And it's like, well, now it has to be 5 times longer. It's like, I stand by it.
I don't care. That's what I want.
That's what I want.
But so those same people who were so incredibly thoughtful about this and that player experience, right? The game feel. What does it feel like to play this game? Do I ever feel like all my progress is going to be lost? No, I don't ever feel that way, except getting to where you can save is a platforming challenge. You have to first collect 3 Dixie Kong faces or Candy Kong faces, and then you go into the bonus stage, and then you have to survive the bonus stage, which as you go throughout the game is not a foregone conclusion. There were times I fell off of the platform in the bonus stage and did not get to save and was super sad. Like, it's... I honestly can't think of another game I've played where like you can fail at saving.
Yeah, like saving is a chore. Like once you get to the what would be ostensibly called the save area, that you're not done. Like it's the EA games of saving. Like it's you think you're through it and you're not. So that I thought was completely antithetical to the game feel, because I was having a blast, man. I was dying left and right, but I didn't care because it was fun, Like I missed the platform. I was like, and the thing is, there are checkpoints within the level, right? So I'd like hit a checkpoint and I like run and like I die. I'm like, I died. I got flattened. I got flattened. Wile E. Coyote. Okay, run. Oh no, I drowned that time. All right, whatever. Run. I was like, well, I ran out of lives. Oh, I've been kicked back substantially far, and I was like, I don't really want to do all this again. This feels stressful, I don't really want to play this anymore. It was definitely like a quitting moment, where I was like, and it wasn't a rage quit. Like it was like, I would love to continue to enjoy this. I've already enjoyed this part of it. I would like to enjoy the much, much more that this game has to offer. I was having a good time, but now you're like forcing me to go back and play a bunch of the game that I've already played. I felt that this game would have benefited, and I know I always go back to this but like it felt like it should have the cycle time of Celeste, where it's just like, I died. Try again. I died again. Try again, man. Just keep trying until you get it, But no, it is like that until you run out of lives. And that completely changed. Now it's like survival horror, and these lives are the small amount of food that I have to carry me through. Completely antithetical to the experience, which just floored me that they did it that way.
Yeah, and to your credit, when they remade this game quite a bit later as the Insane Trilogy, there were two major differences. One for which it was universally praised, and one for which it was universally panned. The one it was universally panned for is they rounded and softened a lot of the edges, which means some of the more precise platforming is now way more precise. Because if you don't land directly on the flat surface, you kind of slide off to your death. And that's it. I know it probably wasn't quite this reductive, but it's almost like they said, oh, we have modern technology. We can add more triangles. And no one said, a lot of triangles from far enough away is a curve, right? Like from a distance, many triangles now looks like a rounded edge, right? And that's basically what happened is they made everything feel softer and rounder. And so there's a lot of times where you just literally, you can see the character model slide to his death off of the edge of what in the original game would have behaved like a flat surface. So that one, they were pretty much universally panned for because it sucks. Something they did that was universally praised is it just auto saves after every single level.
Yeah,
so
that's what I wanted.
Yeah, so if as long as you beat the level, you have credit for getting that far, right? You don't have to earn saving. You don't have to beat the level and then earn saving that you beat the level. You just auto save after every single level, and that's one of those things that like I was playing and I was getting to that survival horror place, right, where it was just like, oh God, like the stream is almost over. I'm going to be going to bed soon. I only have like 2 lives left. I don't know if I'm going to be able to save. And somebody in chat was just like, yeah, it was really nice when they added the autosave after every single level into the remake. And I was just like,
and so I think that the reason why they did this, right, is because what's the extrinsic reward in this game?
It's saving Candy Kong.
Yeah. No, it's lives, right? You know, like it all, again, it's all lives, right? You know, like, cause there's 3 main collectibles, right? You know, one of them is the mask, right? The culturally insensitive mask, right? Which arguably prevents you from losing lives, right? Apples, which, eventually give you lives. They work like coins, right? Is that right?
Yeah, I think it's even every 100, so it's exactly like coins.
Exactly. Yeah. Sound off when I ask you to. So, and then there's actual lives, you know, and then I guess save points, you know, but like them's the collectibles, right? So that means that all of it leads to one extrinsic reward, which is lives. These are all, everything is exchanged in turn for lives, right? So I felt that they felt that the extrinsic reward had to have some meaning, you know? So if you're saving at the end of every level, then why collect any apples whatsoever, right? Because eventually apples just lead to lives. And if I've effectively got infinite lives, then why collect any apples? But here's the thing, is that this game is intrinsically fun. Right? I am playing the game not because of the extrinsic reward, not because of the levels I'm going to gain, not because of the better equipment, because of the mods, anything like that. I am playing the game because it's fun. You did it. You made a game intrinsically fun. And then in order to make the extrinsic reward meaningful, you made the game less intrinsically fun. It's hilarious in like its backwardsness, you know, because I feel that they were like, you know, they made this game and everybody's like, man, this game's really fun. It's like, yeah, but all games have extrinsic rewards. We got to have an extrinsic reward system. It's like, no. You got to the Holy Grail. It's like, well, we have to have doctors. It's like, no, we drank from the Holy Grail. Like we got the fountain of youth. We are all healthy now forever. We don't need to have a medical system because we're all gods. And it's like, no, got to have a medical system. And it's like, you know, it's like I feel that they had this mythical thing that they didn't really know existed, and so they created the thing that they knew, which hurt the mythical thing. You know?
Yeah, I mean, I could absolutely entertain a well, we got to have some kind of feedback loop that involves lives and how you gain more lives, because that's how video games are made, right? Like, I could 100% believe them going through that. I could also entertain, like, they couldn't have a save after every level without making the password system burdensome, because now they would have, because there are some levels you can't save in, right? Not every level has bonus level accessible from it. So there are more levels than there are bonus levels, which means if it saves after every level, they would have to give you a password after every level, because they very generously didn't think everyone would have a memory card. So like, it's that feels really straw graspy. Don't get me wrong. I'm sure it was way more like, oh, gotta have lives, gotta have lives, gotta have something that you collect 100 of, which gives you another life, right? That's because it's video gamey. But it's also something that they immediately recognized sucked and abandoned, right? Just like, hey, how do people feel about Z-axis platforming? Not good. Okay, could we squeeze like two more games out of this? Two more games? Okay, and then we'll stop.
Except for the new one.
Actually, yeah. I don't know. That's an interesting point. Is I've seen like marketing trailers for the fourth one, but I don't know if it also has the same perspective as its predecessors.
A good way for us to find out. A good way for us to don't look it up. Don't look it up. That's research. But
it's only research if it's a game we're going to play for the show.
And exactly. So that's what. So if you don't look it up, then it's definitely a game we're going to play for the show. So don't look it up.
Stop it!
But yeah. So, anyways, did not like the lives and the continues, and yeah, I mean, possibly it would make the save conditions.
No, dude,
more...
that's so. You don't have to try and defend that. That's so.
Okay.
That's so strong.
Like, do I have to address this? But anyways, that was kind of the bulk of my stuff for gameplay. I mean, I've got more little stuff, but that's the meat of what I had.
Yeah, no, I think we can ask whether or not we thought it hold up, and
do it. Start your feelings. You know it to be true.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I was not totally shocked to find, like, I don't think you need any nostalgia goggles for this game. Like, it's fun, it's silly, it's hard. There are some crazy difficulty spikes, and if you want to hear me just shatter that PG-13 rating, go find the VODs for this on Twitch before they expire out after like 90 days or whatever, because I am just like F, right? But this is the thing, is as angry as I get in a lot of those sections, and I get very angry, at no point would I ever say, looking back, that I wasn't having fun. Like, I continued to have fun. I continued to want to overcome the challenge. And when I beat the game, it felt super triumphant, right? Like, it felt good to play, even at the parts where I was like getting beaten down, because I was like, no, I can do this. Like, I can overcome this challenge. I'm going to, see this through till I either finish it or till I reach what I believe is a challenge I cannot overcome. But I never got to the point where I was just like, the game is broken, the game is poorly designed, the game isn't fun, this isn't fair, this sucks, right? It's exactly as you described it. Like, it's intrinsically fun. I'm playing a Wile E. Coyote cartoon. Like, that's fun. I enjoyed that. I would recommend this, not the remake, not the one with the slippery physics. Like, go back and play the crappy low polygon PS1 version. It's super charming, super fun. No nostalgia goggles required.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I don't think that I'm as firmly on like the no nostalgia goggles required, like in the sense of, yes, that is the ranking, but where you're like hard, no nostalgia goggles required. I'm like, no, not like rock hard, like, more like pumice hard, Is
hummus on the list of things that are hard?
Hummus.
Oh, pumice. See that? That would make more sense, but also my incredulity was not misplaced based on the information I had.
No, it wasn't. I mean, if you're eating hummus that is on the spectrum of rock hard, you need to reevaluate your hummus storage system.
Anyway, I think we might need a new fridge.
But no, it is intrinsically fun. And again, like the one thing that I would say takes the wind out of its sails is the save system. But you know what? Like you said, there is a password system. So if just go look up the password online, if you're going back, you're playing this game, just go back online and say like, hey, I died on stage 5 and it punted me back to stage 3. What's the passcode for stage 5? Just boot it up, take it from there, That's
a good point. That's something you benefit from with a password system that you can technically do with save files, but it's a lot more work.
Yeah, it's a lot more energy. So that as from my seat, no nostalgia goggles required, and so much so that I would really love to see kind of where this franchise went. So the one thing that we got to play is Ocarina of Time.
The curtain falls, the music plays, the credits roll, then it all fades to black. And you're left by yourself. The fanfare is gone. There's no player 2 there by your side to share victories won. But as you slowly progress down the hall to your bed, a few great events leak back into your head from the time that you spent traversing the land, battling evil, fighting the darkness, just sword in hand. Your memories creep in with the edge of a smile. You realize again what you lost for a while. You're gonna think back much less on how you saved the day.